we come to the verb. Right, this is qini mkhize. Can you please help me with the verb? How to see a verb in a sentence. Okay, qini, I can be here forever. The joke that I used to have years ago was when there were no questions, I'll do the finite verb. So, qini, I'm going to do the finite verb, all right? At this point, let's look at the finite verb. Okay, so what did we learn in primary school? In primary school, they would have taught you that the verb is a doing word. So let's start with that. That the verb gives you something that somebody's doing. I write. Okay, what am I doing? I am writing. So I call this a finite verb. And now we go back to what is a finite verb? What is a finite verb? I won't leave you in suspense. Subject, number, person, tense. Again, what is a finite verb? What is a finite verb? I won't leave you in suspense. Subject, number, person, tense. What is a finite verb? What is a finite verb? I won't leave you in suspense. Subject, number, person, tense. Right. There will be a little test for the producers of this program afterwards. What did we say? It has a subject, it has number, it has person, and it has a tense. Now, really, the easiest thing for my students is tense. So let's start there. I write, what tense are we in? To find the subject of a verb, you ask who or what before the verb. Who or what is writing? I. What number is it? Singular or plural? Singular. So the verb is singular. What person is it? First person. I is first person. But tense is usually easier. Now, if you then want the continuous form, I am writing. Your finite verb, excuse me, is am writing. It's the two words. What tense are we in? Present. And then the CAPS document says progressive. I learned the old word, which is present continuous. Let's say the finite verb is subject, is there an object? To find the object of a finite verb, ask who or what after the verb. I am writing who or what. Is this verb active or passive? Is the subject doing the verb, or is something being done to the subject? The subject is doing the verb. The subject is doing the writing. It is active. Can you make it passive? Take the object and make it the new subject. Take the verb. Do we say, all right, I want to keep the same tense, present continuous. Do we say a letter am? No, a letter is. Now I need another word in here. I need to keep the ing. I need a word with ing here. put in by and make the subject the new agent. So, Trini, this is the finite verb, is being written, and it's passive. So this is the present continuous passive form of the verb. And Trini, I could do that with every tense. So if we just look at our tenses, we have the present tense, the future tense, and the past tense. But we also have perfective tenses. So we have the present perfect, which has or have plus the verb. We have the future perfect. So the future is shown by shall or will. The perfect is shown by has or have. I'm just wondering if we use has. I shall have, you will have, he will have. We shall have, it's have. We don't use has plus the verb. And then we have the past perfect tense, which is had plus the verb. So, Lini, I don't know how many tenses your teacher has taught you. 3 or 6 or 3 with a continuous, that's 6, plus 3 perfectives with a continuous, that's 12. Has your teacher said, then we have to look at the passive forms that are most commonly used? But these are your finite verbs. And as I said, it's got a subject, number, person. But the easiest thing for you to grab onto is that it has a tense. And there are 3 basic tenses, and then the perfective tenses, which has, have, had in them, and then the continuous form. So we have a simple present and a present continuous. We have all of those forms. Now the perfective tenses have something to do with the past. So if you say, I had written a letter before I had my breakfast, you've got 2 things happening in the past. One thing happens first in the past, then the second thing happens in the past. Use had for the first one and the past tense for the second. The have form of the verb. If you say something like, I haven't had my hair cut for weeks, what am I saying? Is that something hasn't happened in the past and has an effect in the present. Look at it. Okay, so when you use the present perfect, you're saying something happened in the past that has an impact in the present. So you say to somebody, would you like a cup of tea? No, thank you, I've had one already. Meaning I've had a cup of tea and I still am feeling it now. I don't need another cup of tea now. The shall have is when you're saying there are 2 things that are going to happen in the future, but one thing has to happen before the other thing can happen. So, classes will have been sterilized before staff members and students will return to school. 2 things happening in the future, but this one has to happen first. We use the future perfect because it is something that's going to be finished in the future before something else happens in the future. Right, now that looks at the finite verb as a doing word. But obviously that's not adequate because we teach incorrectly in a primary school and then we have to fix it later on. So let's have another sentence. If you said, I am Janet, am I doing anything? Well, not in the amming. In the amming, I'm just sitting here, being Janet. Right. I'm not doing anything. So what have we got here? We've got a finite verb. How do we know? What tense are we in? Present tense. So the word that tells you the tense, together with any other bits that might tell you a doing bit, is the finite verb. This is the finite verb. And English has the verb to be. So if we go with person, we talked about person. So person is I and you and he, she, and it in the singular. And person in the plural is we, you, and they. Now, English has the same word. This you was plural originally and has now become singular as well. Okay, so let's do the verb to be. I am. He, you are. He, she, it is. We. What about the past tense? I, you, we, you, they. What about the future? Now, teachers know that I and we use shall and everybody else uses will. But nobody else knows that really anymore, so don't worry about it. If you just use will be, will be. So let's just do this. So if you say something like, I shall be in the studio until 4. What's the finite verb? What's my tense? Which words are telling you that? That's the finite verb. But it's not a doing word, it's a being word. So if we're going to use a very simple explanation like a verb is a doing word, then you need to say a verb is a doing word or a being word. Now, when the verb to be is used with a doing word, then we call it the auxiliary. So if we say, I shall be fetched at 4, what's the finite verb? What tense are we in? Which words are telling you future? Well, that's telling you the future. That's the second part of the future, and that's the doing part of the word. So this whole thing is the finite verb. In the future, simple, passive, because I'm not doing the fetching, I'm being fetched. So, Eni, I understand the verb is confusing. I mean, it's not a joke when I say I could teach the verb for the rest of time. I could. But doing just a whole lot of grammar and a whole lot about verbs is not necessarily going to help you at all. So all the research has shown for years. I mean, I remember doing this research when I was a student, and they'd done it before that. So, and I've been teaching for a very long time. So let's say in the last 100 years, the research has shown that if I sit here and just teach you the verb from now until 4 o'clock, another hour of the verb, I possibly won't have helped you all that much. So what do I want you to get out of this? That you know that the verb can tell you something that happens in the sentence, or can tell you the state of being. I'm going to become a superstar. Become tells you the sort of state that I'm going to be in. and that a sentence needs a subject and a finite verb for a sentence to make sense in English. That's formal English, and it communicates. And in your answers, when you are writing answers, you should use sentences because that's how you communicate with people. And you need to get your verbs correct. So you don't say I is, you say I am, not, you am. So that's important. But I think what you need to do is see where you need these verbs. Why are you distressed about them? Where are they causing a problem? And then get your teachers to help you come onto a program like this, sponsored by Liberty, and get some help around specific examples around the verb. And if your teacher's giving you lists and lists and lists of exercises, they're quite nice to tick off, both for you and the teacher, but they're not that helpful when you next speak or you next write.